Hello and welcome to another episode of Marty's Matchbox Makeovers. My name's Marty and I'm very pleased that you have chosen to watch this video today. Today's video is a makeover of this rather sad looking number 35A, and it's a Matchbox Leslie model, the Marshall Horsebox, which came out in 1957. The main differences between the variants of this vehicle are the wheels. They can be the plastic or metal and they come in grey, black or silver. Also the axles can be crimped, or as in this example, they are just dome ended. So as I said before, this is a rather simple plain looking vehicle. So I've managed to source a replica door. Now having a look at the model, you can see on the radiator grille it's got ERF, like earth, and I could only find one picture of a similar vehicle. It's not a horse box, but it does tell you what that circle is at the bottom of the grille. It's the hole for the starter motor handle. Now whilst I was looking at this model, I was reminded that I had another horse box and I couldn't quite remember what it looked like, so I had a look through this little booklet of models of the time, and there it is there. It's the number 17 horse box, and it came with some plastic horses, and here it is. Here's the one that I've got, and it came from James Conway of Cloverdale, so thanks James. And this particular model has one horse in it. I don't know if it's a replica horse or not. Could be, but it could be the original and the other one got missing. It should have two horses, and it's all plastic. The cabin is all plastic on this one. So obviously this is a later model. Anyway, a bit of interest there for some of you maybe. So back to the Marshall horse box. I'm going to be separating the body, obviously, painting them, well, appropriate colours, like the cabin and the base red obviously, and the back section a light brown. These axles are very rusty and will need to be cleaned or even replaced. I think the tyres will scrub up quite well. And there I am showing you the comparison with the old and the new model, where they both came with a folding door ramp on the side. Now this model is very simple. It is held together with these splayed ears, I suppose you could call them, that are going through a slot on the base. And having worked with these before, I know it's very simple just to separate them, but not as easy to put them back together, especially if the ears are splayed too much and they may become deformed when you're removing the base. Now why is that door missing, I wonder? Well, having a look at this, it looks like the tray has been bent during playtime, so that might have contributed to the door becoming loose and falling out. Now I'm going to take these wheels off. As normal, I'm going to grind off this little flange on the end of the axle. And I'm going to use a little Dremel tool. Now this is one I've used before, and you can see the shoulder on it has been rounded off. And they don't work particularly well if they're rounded off, so I'm going to replace it with this new one, which has a nice right-angled profile. I'll show you why in a minute. I do like this model. It's got that little thumb activated locking pin to stop the chuck from turning when you're tightening it up. Now here you can see why I've gone for a brand new grindstone. It's because if it didn't have that sharp edge on it, I would have to get too close to the model to actually grind away at the end of the axle, and it would risk damaging the model. As it is here, I am extremely close to both the model and the wheel, so it's very fiddly and easy to stuff it up. Here I'm using my left finger to press on the axle to give it maximum protrusion through the wheel on the other side, that I'm holding flat with my thumb, so I've got maximum extension of the axle there to work on, just to give me that edge that I need. And It was a little bit nail biting, but it worked, and there's no damage to the wheel or the model, which is good. And these always look metal to me. Very difficult to tell the metal and the plastic ones apart, because the plastic they used was very, very solid, almost as hard as metal. And I'd like to tell you that these were one or the other, but I don't know, in all honesty, and I'm not going to start rubbing them down with emery paper to see if they come up shiny metal, because then I've got damage to repair, so I won't bother with that. So now it's split into its main components. It's time to get this old paint off. I've got to look for a place to hold this model where it's not going to be seen when the model's back together, because the paint won't go where the nibs of those surgical forceps hemostats, I think they're called. That's what I used to hold the model. I've got some paint stripper here. You've probably seen it before if you're a regular. Sorry to bore you if you've seen all this before, but it really is showing you the whole process, because this could be the first time you've seen this channel, and if it is, welcome aboard. I hope you enjoy it. Please check out the other videos that are available. So I've used various types of paint stripper throughout my experimentation with this hobby, and this is one that I always return to. It's very, very good at the old enamel paints. It's by Polystripper. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but just putting it out there in case you want to buy some for yourself. Now, ordinarily I would have got the paint ready prior to stripping it, but I do know which paints I'm going to be using, and it's a bit of a mix. One is a Mr. Hobby and the other one is a Tamiya Red. Now in my reference books it does always mention that the colours of the vehicles are various shades of a colour. So the colour tone is not 100% accurate, and I will admit it, but it is kind of authentic in a way, because as I said from my research, the colours did vary depending on who was mixing the paint that day, or whether it was a Friday afternoon job. It's very satisfying watching the paint come off in large pieces. I've cleaned the sink today because the sink was pretty messy, so I had to spend like 20 minutes cleaning the sink just so I could film this bit. And you'd think, geez, keeps a clean house. Now, I must have missed that bit on the back and the bit on the side with the paint stripper, so I just have to redo those bits. The red came off almost 100%. Apologise for the out of focus shot there. Look at the detail on these this cabin, or the body, main body. It's amazing. Now there is a seam down the middle there where the mould would have clamped together, and some people file that down. I don't usually. My aim is to try and return the model to its original condition, or make it look original anyway. So I don't tamper with things like that very often. But I'm going to have a bash at straightening this tray on this truck. It looks pretty simple. As you can see, there's a tab on the back and those ears go through the slot at the front. So what I was doing was looking at it, and because that's bent, the chassis is bent, you can see that the door retention points are probably not working as well as they should, because the floor is lifted up by some person standing on the roof of this and pushing the rear axle up. So I'm hoping if I straighten this up, not only will it look better, but it might actually keep the door in this time round. I've just got to flex this up. I'm using, I mean there's many ways of doing it, but I'm just using a couple of shifters here. I like using them because they've got smooth jaws, so they don't leave any dents in the metal like a set of pliers might, that have a zigzaggy sort of teeth on them. It's not 100%. I've got to now tilt the cabin forward. I wasn't too worried about the straightening of the tray, but bending the cabin forward did concern me a little bit, because there is a weak point there with that hole in the base behind the cabin, but it seemed to work. This metal, I don't know what it is, it was actually quite soft. So it's obviously the old school, some people call it Zamac, I think. It's a mixture anyway, it's an alloy. So I'm going to give them a quick coat of the undercoat that I use, which is the Tamiya Fine Primer Light Grey. I do like this Tamiya Fine Primer. It goes on, doesn't obscure any of the details on the model. I mean, it actually makes them stand out, if anything, rather than obscuring them. So I leave them on those magnetic clips to dry in my paint booth. I really cannot express just how beautifully detailed this model is. So many lines on it, and they're all perfectly formed, which is quite amazing. Considering it's 1957, they didn't have any laser cutting or computer machines. Not too sure what the handle on the left is for halfway up. Any ideas, let me know. Looked like there was some footholds as well there to climb up, like those spring-loaded flaps that you stick your toe cap in. The actual truck is not as well cast. There again is a nice close-up at the front there with the ERF, the Earth brand of lorries at the time. The Earth is a ERF, it's the initials of the guy who founded the company. I forget what his name is. And I'd seen that Earth somewhere before, and I remembered it was on this little tiny red truck, number 20A stake truck that I did in an earlier video. And it looks like they used the same casting, almost. The windows look slightly different sizes, can you see that? The grille and the headlights look identical. So I don't know whether it's a slightly bigger truck or slightly bigger scale. They're not exact, but they're very, very, very similar. Now, I'm going to show you the door that I ordered online. A little bit rough around the edges, not too bad, could be a lot worse. So when it goes in, there's just two little pins on either side, hinge points, and there's actually nothing to hold them in other than the base of the vehicle. So it's all a little bit weird how it works, but I guess it does. Little bits of burring up there, flashing if you like. I might just run the file over those, if I remember. So those pieces are going to be painted that colour, and this piece, the main body, is going to be painted X7 red. And as I said before, after I looked at it, after I did it, I thought it does look a little bit brighter than the actual model. But I'm running with the, there was variations in colour in those days, so, and it looks good. It's a kid's toy, and it's bright red, it's beautiful. I just thin that with tiny little quarter of a capful of thinners. Just lets it run through the spray gun a little bit cleaner. Here I am setting myself up in my paint booth. Haven't done any painting for a little while, so I had to clean my airbrush out by running some thinners through it, just in case. And here we go. It's always a little bit nail biting. You hold your breath in case that first spray comes out as like large droplets, which can happen sometimes, and instantly you've got to stop and strip the model and start again, because those droplets just don't go away. However, this time round there was quite a nice spray pattern there and it went on quite well. Not too sure what happened to the light in my spray booth. It looks a little bit dull today. It was a lovely sunny day outside, so maybe it's because it's in shadow coming through the window. Normally it's a little bit brighter in here when I'm doing this to show you what it looks like. But that paint went on absolutely superbly. Now just wait for the paint to dry. Now it's dried, I've taken off the forceps and you can see there's a little area there where I was gripping it, and I'm going to now just touch that little area up with a paintbrush. This here looks magnificent. I do like it, although I don't think it's slightly... It needs to be a little bit more glossy as well, I should be saying. So I'm going to give it a light coat of some Tamiya clear varnish, clear top coat. I'm just showing you there that point, that little mark won't be seen because it will be hidden behind the cabin when I put it back together. The horse ramp turned out okay. Now it's just the wheels. Not a lot to this model. In fact, this is quite a short video by comparison of some of the videos I've made. And the reason is it's such a simple model. But I'm trying to show you all the bits and pieces that go into it, because it may be a simple model, but nevertheless it's not a 5-minute job. So I've got this little square piece of wood. It's got some nails driven into it with the heads cut off, and it's great for positioning wheels when you want to clean them. I use a toothbrush and some warm water with a bit of washing up liquid in it, and away I go, scrubbing away. And dry them off. Then I flip them over and do the other side. They come up all right. What I'm doing here, I'm getting rid of any grit, sand, grime, oil, etc. And it's not the end of it, because I do give them a light coat of some grey tyre wash that I use. So I'm really preparing them to be painted. I could, I suppose, leave them unpainted, but they wouldn't look brand new. They'd still have a little bit of taint about them. So this is another thing I've had for the last 3 years, I guess. Little plastic clamp I got from the $2 shop. Stick some cocktail sticks in there and put the wheels on there for painting. This is the thinned down XF grey paint that I use for these grey wheels. Running a bit short, but that doesn't really take much. There, mustn't forget touching up that little bit there, just in case someone in the future picks the model up and inspects it at close quarters, and they'd say, look at this guy, he missed this bit. I got this box of axles, and I was a little bit worried that when I ground the heads off, I didn't leave enough metal on the end to flatten when I put the axles back in, and I didn't want to risk ruining the model. So I've got some slightly longer ones on standby just in case the originals aren't long enough. So I've got this small, I don't know what it is, 10 volt maybe motor that I can't even remember where I got it from. And I've got a little chuck that I bought on eBay, and it fits on the end of the motor shaft. And I use an old power supply from a laptop that I had to power it, and it makes for a great little and it's a great little tool for cleaning the axles. With some emery paper, have the axle held in the chuck and just run the emery paper up and down along it, and it cleans it up. I just dropped that one, it just flew off. Picked it up, there it is. Let's get the focus right. Looks a bit ordinary, doesn't it? Well, still some work to go, but it gets the majority of the rust off in quick time. So that was one. Here's the second one. I did this one a little bit tighter so it won't fly off this time round. You can almost see, well, you can see the rust coming off with the emery paper. I think this one came up a little bit better. So I still have to clean them now with some metal polish and get them looking as new as possible. And then I take a trip out to my shed where I'm now going to put the wheels back on to the axles using two hollow point nail punches, one held vertically in a block of wood directly underneath the other one, which is held in the chuck of a drill stand. Notice I don't hold the model, I'm only holding the axle. Only takes 20 seconds, light pressure, and the end of the axle's peened over by the actions of the compression and the rotation of the upper nail punch. Don't know where I got those Sid Chrome pliers from. I found them in the shed. I had a bit of a clean up. If anyone's missing some Sid Chrome pliers, I don't recall buying them, so let me know. Amazing what you accumulate over the years. Right, those wheels look pretty smick and they function well. And here comes Ziggy. Hello Ziggy and Finn. Every time I'm in here, if they hear some activity, they appear. So go on, get out of here now. Go on, off you go. Go on, get. Go on, get. Go on. Good boys. Off you go. Go on, off you go. So back in the hobby room, and I've got to paint the front end of this. I'm going to use some of this liquid chrome paint and a small paintbrush and a steady hand. I did film doing it, but I forgot to press start. So now I'm kind of pretending to paint it again because you missed the exciting bit. So you've got the boring bit to contend with. As it was, the chrome paint didn't cover quite as well as I would have liked, so I ended up redoing it with some standard Tamiya chrome paint, which seemed to work better. I don't know why. The chrome ink or the chrome pens always worked for me in the past. It may have dried up a bit, however. Now I'm showing you those ears that are splayed in the factory to hold the base on. And the fact of the matter is that when I removed it, split this apart, they weren't damaged or deformed in any way. So I'm actually thinking it's going to go back together quite firmly, but as a backup plan, because I don't want it falling apart later on down the track, I'm going to put a tiny little daub of super glue on the tray of the truck, or on the underside of the horse cabin, and then I'm going to click it together, and that should hopefully stop it from like dropping apart if it's not quite tight enough. This super glue is extremely watery too, and you have to use that tiny little nozzle there, like an elephant's trunk, to drop one tiny droplet at a time. So now this is an exciting point where I'm not too sure the door's going to function as it should. It might actually fall out. Let's see. It did. So I'll put it back in again. Problem is, those little hinge points are so small. There's not a lot of metal there to hold on. But I actually think it might have worked. There's a bit of a gap above the cabin there. I do give it a push, and there is a satisfying click, which you missed out on. And that gap disappeared, because have a look here. So this is what we started with. You can see there's no gap above the cabin. And this is what it looks like now. What a beautiful little thing it is. Not necessarily a fantastic model, but so detailed, that back end, I think it makes up for it. It's great. Those crisp horizontal lines of the, I guess, wooden planks that went into the manufacture of the horse box makes this model super special in its own way. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Marty's Matchbox Makeovers. Probably wasn't much content in it that you haven't seen before. However, as always, I enjoyed doing it, and I'm very pleased to have another small model, a vintage Matchbox model, to add to my ever-growing collection. So once again, thanks for watching, and I shall see you soon next time on Marty's Matchbox Makeovers. Goodbye.